A desperate whisper cuts through the steam of a bitter Darjeeling. A wrinkled hand grips a cheap flannel sleeve. A lie is born. Not for love, but because an exhausted father simply forgot how to say no when the wealthiest woman in the city walked through the cafe door. The cafe smelled of burned milk and wet dog. Thomas hated it here. He hated the uneven legs of the little wooden tables that rocked every time he shifted his weight, and he hated the lo-fi acoustic covers whining from the ceiling speakers. But mostly he hated that an Americano cost $4, which meant he had to mentally subtract it from the grocery budget before taking a sip. Across from him, Lily was meticulously destroying a blueberry muffin. She was 7, missing a front tooth, and utterly indifferent to the persistent rain drumming against the foggy window. Blue crumbs coated her chin. She hummed a cartoon theme song, a sound that usually brought Thomas comfort. But today, it just felt like a metronome ticking against his mounting headache. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. His knuckles were raw from the winter air and the abrasive soap at the auto shop. He needed a moment, just 3 minutes of uninterrupted silence, to figure out how he was going to pay the heating bill by Friday. "Dad," Lily said, her voice muffled by a mouthful of cake. "The lady is looking at us." Thomas opened one eye. "Don't stare, Bug. Eat your muffin." "I'm not staring. She is." Thomas turned his head. Sitting 2 tables away was an elderly woman. She didn't belong in a place that served coffee in chipped ceramic mugs. She wore a tailored wool coat, the color of wet sand, and a silk scarf pulled tight around her throat. Her posture was rigid back, completely straight hands, resting over the handle of a dark wood cane. But what unsettled Thomas was her eyes. They were pale, watery blue and locked dead onto him. He looked away, shifting his weight. The table wobbled. Coffee sloshed over the rim of his mug, pooling on the faux wood laminate. "Damn it!" he muttered, grabbing a thin, useless paper napkin to sop it up. When he looked up again, the old woman was standing over him. Thomas recoiled, pushing his chair back. He hadn't heard her approach over the hiss of the espresso machine. Up close, she smelled like gin lavender, an old paper, a sharp, nostalgic scent that caught him off guard. "Can I help you?" Thomas asked, his voice tighter than he intended. He instinctively reached a hand across the table, hovering near Lily. The woman didn't answer immediately. She looked at his faded flannel shirt, the grease stains permanently worked into the cuticles of his fingers, and then down at Lily. Her lips pressed into a thin line. It wasn't disgust. It was calculation. Suddenly, her hand darted out. She grabbed Thomas's wrist. Her grip was shocking. Her fingers were cold and bony, feeling like a bird's talon wrapping around his radius. "Hey," Thomas said, trying to pull his arm back. "Lady, let go." "Pretend," she whispered. Her voice was a rasp like dry leaves scraping across a pavement. "Pretend you are my daughter's fiancé." Thomas stared at her. His brain, already sluggish from exhaustion, simply refused to process the sentence. "What look? I don't have any cash. I do not want your cash." "You idiot," she hissed, her grip tightening. Her pale eyes flicked toward the cafe entrance. "I need you to smile. I need you to nod. And I need you to act as though you belong to her. Do it, and I will pay you." "Are you out of your mind?" Thomas finally yanked his arm free, his pulse kicking up a notch. "I'm calling the manager." "Dad?" Lily asked, her crayon halting on her coloring book. She looked between Thomas and the strange woman, her brow furrowing. "It's fine, Lily. The lady is just leaving. "She's coming," the old woman said, ignoring Thomas entirely. Her chest heaved with a sudden rattling breath. "God help me, she's coming inside." The bell above the cafe door chimed. The shift in the room was immediate. It was as if the air pressure dropped. The barista stopped steaming milk. The two college students in the corner stopped typing on their laptops. A woman stepped through the doorway. She was in her early 30s, dressed in an immaculate charcoal suit that seemed to absorb the dim light of the cafe. Her dark hair was pulled back into a severe knot. She paused just inside the threshold, scanning the room with the detached clinical efficiency of a predator categorizing prey. The rain hadn't touched her. She looked entirely dry, entirely untouchable, and radiating a quiet, crushing authority. Thomas recognized her. Anyone who owned a television or read a newspaper in this city would. Victoria Harrington, CEO of Harrington Industries. She bought blocks of the city the way other people bought groceries. Victoria's eyes locked onto the old woman standing at Thomas's table. A muscle in her jaw feathered. She began walking toward them, her leather heels clicking against the linoleum floor in a slow, deliberate rhythm. "Mother," Victoria said. Her voice was smooth, cultured, and devoid of any warmth. It sounded like ice cracking. "You gave your security detail the slip again. They are panicked. Do you have any idea how much of a liability this is?" The old woman Beatrice didn't flinch. She leaned heavily on her cane and turned to face her billionaire daughter. "I am not a toddler, Victoria," Beatrice snapped. "I was merely having a quiet afternoon with my future son-in-law.